Yo, what up, though? We back at it. Street Coder Nate. Shoot, let me take this blanket off. It just got real hot. but we back at it. Street Coder Nate. Welcome back to the channel. Today we got a good one for y'all. This is intro to CSS. So pretty much we got to, I was telling y'all we was gonna do this HTML stuff. We got through the HTML stuff. We got through the setting up stuff. Now we saw that our web page was looking very, very basic without any CSS on it. What web page we're talking about, we're gonna see the example pretty soon. But the web page that we were building was very, very basic, had no CSS or had no styling to it. And the reason we didn't have any styling to it is because we didn't have cascade styling sheets added to our project. But before we can get into adding cascade styling sheets into the project, we need to understand the syntax, which is another word for saying the rules for writing CSS. And so that's what we're gonna hop in to today. Let's hop into it. Drink of the day, it's the morning again. So I'm gonna go with another shake. I got a banana. Make sure y'all start your day off right. I got a green screen in the background, so you probably can't see the banana. But like, let's tap in. All right, cool. So let me pull up Chrome. I know I've been working out of Safari lately, but today and for now on, we're gonna be working out of Chrome. And the reason being is so that we can be on consistent. I want to be consistent with y'all, so I don't want y'all to be. I know Google Chrome works on Windows and it works on Mac and it works on Linux, so we're just gonna use Google Chrome. We could also use Safari. We could also use Firefox, which also works on all three too. But typically before I was using Safari because I'm a Mac user. But I want y'all to be able to follow along just as I'm following or just as I'm doing it. So we're gonna use Google Chrome. And so when we go to Google Chrome and we open up the project that we were supposed to be creating in the previous video in the HTML, we see that this is what the project looks like. Pretty interesting, right? And so we were trying to recreate this. And so we saw that there was a background here. Then we had an H1 tag, some lorem, p tag, and then a button. So when I came back over to my site, you see that we got the welcome, the lorem, and then the button. But obviously this looks nothing like this. Like, it has the same text and all the words, but it looks nothing like that. This is the important part of CSS. See, HTML is what you put onto the web page. Now you're starting to understand what I mean by that. This is what you put onto the web page. We put the welcome to the beach, the lorem, and then the readme onto the web page, right? But now, for our sake, let me see. So we put that onto the web page, but and for our website, we also put that onto the web page as well. And so we kind of need to figure out, like, okay, we have the things that we want on the web page. How do we get them to the exact position and the exact way that this web page right here is? And so today I'm going to kind of introduce you to a way to do that. But first, we kind of, like I said, you got to understand the CSS selectors in order to do that. So that's what I'm be showing y'all first is CSS selectors, because what is a CSS selector and all that other stuff. So we about to hop right into this right away. One thing that we about to learn today is called the Chrome DevTools. And so you guys, some one of y'all, y'all probably tried to open up the Chrome DevTools one day and then it was like, all right, you probably went to Google Chrome one day, opened up the DevTools on accident and was like, bro, what the hell going on? Let me show y'all. It probably looks something like this. So you right click the web page and then you press inspect. And on the right hand side, what you will see is So on the right hand side, what you will see is the HTML for the actual web page. This is the HTML right here. Let me go ahead and zoom in. Oh yeah, hella actually. I didn't even notice we was out that far. Let me zoom in over here too. Okay, cool. We can see a little better over there. Okay. So this is actually when you see elements, and I've always been calling these HTML tags elements because that's exactly what they are. They are elements to the web page, and so you can see literally the HTML that we wrote. You have the HTML tag, the doc type, the head tag, the body tag, and the close off the H tag or the HTML tag. And now that I actually think about it, I'm actually looking at a different project right now. So let me open up. I'm actually gonna close this one out because that's not the project we was working on yesterday. It was close, very similar to the project we were working on. But I was actually tutoring someone yesterday and teaching them the exact same thing. And so this is the HTML CSS intro, but that's not what we called ours. We called ours HTML CSS intro, HTML underscore beginner underscore site. That's what we called ours. So we're gonna open that one up and go documents, front end, HTML, CSS, or HTML beginner site, double click on the HTML file. And I don't think I ever explained this to you. When you double click on a file that has the .html extension, what it would do is actually open your default browser because the computer sees HTML and it says this needs to be open in the browser so that we can show the actual so that we can render. And when I say render, I'm going to use these words now. So I'm going to explain it to you. When I say render, render means to paint the image onto the screen. So what do I mean by that? What do I mean by paint the image onto the screen? There's HTML. Let me inspect this page. You can inspect any page. There's HTML for this page, as you can see right here. And we can show the HTML or we can render the HTML. And so render the HTML is what you see on the left-hand side. This is us painting this is the browser painting what the HTML and CSS or what the HTML says and what the CSS describes the HTML looking like. So we got on the left hand side we got the rendered, and then on the right hand side we actually got the HTML that we wrote. And so when we double click on these files, it's going to automatically go to the browser because it thinks that, well, we're humans, and 9 times out of 10 most of y'all not programmers, so if y'all clicking on the HTML file, y'all most likely want to see the content, like y'all want to see it rendered. Y'all don't want to see the actual HTML, like 9 times out of 10. But if you are a programmer and you want to see the HTML, instead of double clicking it and then defaulting, all you have to do is right click it and then open with, and you'll see Visual Studio Code right there, and it'll open up with Visual Studio Code. But we actually want to open it in the browser. So what I'm gonna do is double click that, and bada boom, bada bang, it opens right there. But it opened with a Safari browser. So I'm gonna close out that Safari one and go ahead, copy the path, and paste it into Google Chrome. Bang. So here we go. And so how did I know that one was a little different? Is because inside of our body, you see I have a div, and the other one I had a header. And so we're gonna actually change that pretty soon. But this is what our website looks like so far, just with the HTML. Now with the CSS and their website, you can see that they actually have they have this header tag that signifies their hero section. And so a hero section is when you have a landing page. Let me show you mine example. natebaker.me. All right, so the hero section is pretty much when you have a landing page, and you come to that landing page, and the first thing that you see, it usually takes up the whole screen, and it tells you about and it really tells you about the website. So as you can see, is their picture of me, so you know it's a picture of me, or you know this website is about me. Then it says, "Hi, my name is Nate Baker," so you know this website is about Nate Baker. And here's go motivational speaker. And it's gonna switch to coding tutor, and it'll switch to some more stuff, software engineer. So then you'll also see on the left hand side, home, about, resume, services, portfolio. You get a good idea already what this web page is about before you even scroll, before anything happens. Then you can see you can schedule a session, or you can download my resume. So automatically, like, all right, this is somebody's portfolio website, right? that's why we have our hero sections. And so this one, once again, this is just an example of a website that we're creating, but they do follow the hero section syntax where there's this hero. There's this section right here that loads at the top of that loads the full screen, and what it says is "Welcome to the beach, lorem," and whatnot. And so this was somebody else's portfolio, or maybe I would have looked at it and said, oh, this is probably about to be about beaches or outside and venture or something. You see, the hero section really explains that to you at the beginning. So if you ever make a portfolio, make sure your hero section is very kind of like descriptive and whatnot. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're actually looking at. So once again, these are on the right hand side. This is the Chrome DevTools. As a front end developer, this needs to be your best friend. If you're not familiar with the DevTools or you're scared about the DevTools, I will make a video on the DevTools. As for now, and for the rest of this series, I'm just going to be explaining the DevTools through the videos and things that we're going to be doing. So follow along and start to tap in with these DevTools, because the DevTools really are going to take you to the next level as a programmer. Okay, and so let's actually hop into the DevTools. So here we go. The first thing that we have in our DevTools, and I'm not going to explain the whole thing because the DevTools also follow the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, you're only using 20% of the features. So what's most of 20% of the features? You have your Elements tab, you have your Sources tab where all your files are going to be loaded and whatnot. You got the console tab, this is for the JavaScript. So honestly, you could think of this tab right here, the Elements tab. This is for your HTML for the current web page. The console tab is when we get into JavaScript and we need to start running different scripts and code and whatnot on a web page. So we'll be using that console tab a lot there. Then we got our Sources tab, and the sources just tell us about our files that we have inside of our project. So if we come here and actually, so this is our project. Website right now. We go to the Sources tab and we close this, or we open this a little further. You'll see that this is my folder where my project is living, and inside the folder it has a file path that says user street coder Nate, documents, front end work, HTML beginner website. Remember, that's the path. That's the same path right here. Documents, front end work, HTML beginner site, HTML. So if I click inside this folder, there should be an HTML file right there. And what you see is that's that HTML file that we just created right inside of Visual Studio Code. It's literally the same exact thing. Let's see, come back over. Got these windows mixed up. There we go. All right, you come back over and you'll see same thing. This div right here, div, and then it got an H1, a P, and a button. Come back over here, div, right there. You got your H1. Oh, you got your H1. You got your P. You got your button. So the developer tool is really just helping us. It's packaging everything up for us and putting it in the browser so we can have it right here in the browser while we also seeing our code or our rendered HTML on the left side. So it's real dope. We could work in real time. What I mean by that is any change that we make over here will reflect over here right away. Let's see. If I change it on here, no, that's more of in the sources. So if I go to the elements and I open up the elements, I can go to the H1 tag like this. And as you see, as I click on one of these elements, it will hover on the left-hand side. It will show that element that I'm actually hovering over. So right now I'm on this div, and you'll see that all of this blue box is the div. And so let me actually show you this color coordination that HTML, that the Chrome tools use. So when I hover over this div, you see that the blue, the welcome to the beach and all that other stuff becomes blue. Well, that blue is actually the physical element. This is how much space that element is taking up. So if we come down here, we see that this blue area, this div that has welcome to the beach, lorem, and the button is taking up, or is 1,087 pixels by 113.438 pixels. That's what that's saying. Now it says there's no padding around it. It doesn't have a border, and there's no margin. If it did, these little ticks will be numbers, but they're not. So this is a way for us to check our height and our width and stuff right now. And I'll get into padding, border, and margin into more videos once we get in the CSS box model. But we're almost gonna get there. Okay. So CSS syntax is what we're getting into today. We already 15 minutes deep, so we're gonna go 5 minutes left, or about 5 minutes more, and then we're gonna really tap in, or finish out, wrap it up, or 5 to 10 minutes left, and then we're gonna wrap it up. So, but you gotta understand the Chrome DevTools, because I really do work a lot in the Chrome DevTools, and you're gonna be like, what the hell is going on if you don't understand the Chrome DevTools? Okay, so I like to hover over my elements to see which element is what. And so as I see, this div shows me there's no padding, there's no margin, there's no border, it's just blue. So the blue will show you the actual element. So let's click on this H1. So as I was telling you, the blue will show you the element. So here you see that when I'm clicked on the H1, we have our welcome to the beach. We have that part right here, and this part is highlighted in blue. But then we got the orange above it and the orange below it. You see that? Orange above it, orange below it. What is that orange above it, orange below it? Well, that's the margin. And so that's automatically added onto H1 tags. And so you can see that the element itself, the actual welcome to the beach itself is just, that part is just 10, or that part is just 37 pixels tall. But the padding, or the margin, that added 21 pixels here and also 21 pixels here made this whole part, the block, made this whole block from the orange to the orange is what is kind of like the space that is taking up or reserving for itself. And so then we can go to the P tag, and you see the P tag does something very similar too, got its own little padding and stuff like that. And then the button don't have any padding, it doesn't look like, or any margin, but it does have a border and it does have some padding. And so you can see as we highlight over these things, they change colors. The P tag, if I hit on the margin, you see I'm on the margin, then I go onto the actual element, you see I got the stuff on the element. So that's really cool with the Chrome DevTools. Okay, so what was the point of the Chrome DevTools? Well, in the Chrome DevTools, we can also see the styling for each element that we have out here. And so I kind of want to bring this up because we want to, with CSS and HTML, going back to the basics again, HTML is how we put things onto a web page, and CSS is how we style those things that we put onto the web page. Now, with CSS, we need to select those elements that we're putting onto the web page. How do we select those elements? So what do I mean by that? So I have this div element. Let's say that I wanted this div to have a height of like the full screen, right? Like right now, if you look at the div, the height is only up until, like if we come down here, you can see this is the width by the height. So the height is only 113 pixels, but you know, like we got way more height than that. So what we would want to do is select this div and give this div a bigger height, right? And so a way to practice that, giving or selecting a div is one, just here's this element.style. And so what this says is, well, we're at elements, and so when I'm clicked on an element, so this is basically saying div.style. If I clicked on the H1 also has an element.style, the P has an element.style. So basically all of these tags have properties. That's what they're called. They're called properties. And these properties pretty much describe the element. And so element.style, this property, the style property is going to describe the element. And so what do I mean by that? We're going to set some different styling. We could say inside the style, the color is red, the background is green, and the border is 2 pixels, 2 pixels thick with a pink border or something like that. We could set all those different styles right inside of here, and then all those styles will be applied right onto that element. Right. So let me give you an example. I said I wanted the height, and I'm gonna teach y'all all of these different ones. But I said I wanted the height to be the full screen, and so the cheat code for the full screen is VH, 100 VH, and that's viewport height. So basically, what you can see, the viewport height. There's also a viewport width from left to right, horizontal, and there's a viewport height vertical. So now I just added this style property onto this div and said that its height is 100. I just styled it up with giving it a height 100. And as you can see on the left-hand side, as I hover over it, literally as I hover over it, it has now become, like the whole page is blue. And then if you don't believe me, look, the height here is 1,329 pixels, but before it was not that. And the thing is, let's say I don't want that right now. I don't want to see it. I don't want the height right now. You can change this in real time. This is what I mean by real time. You can click on this, and now we hover it over, and it's gone. And we click back, hover over it, it's back. Okay, one cool thing about this, one thing to remember is that when you refresh the page, you can come up here, right here, and go to refresh. You can reload the page, or you can press Command R or Control R on your system, and it will refresh the page. And as you'll see, when we refresh the page, that styling goes away. This only lasts until you refresh the page. Once you refresh the page, the styling goes away. Gotta remember that. So if you want to keep the things that you're checking out right here, all I usually do is like, okay, once I got something styled up correctly and it looks good, I come over here, I copy it, and I come back over to my CSS and I just paste it at my CSS. But we don't even know how to do the pasting part onto the CSS yet because we didn't get into the CSS yet. But you're starting to see the importance of the CSS. The CSS is going to give us ability to grab different elements. So not only can I grab this div element, I can also grab this h1 element. And what if I set a background color of pink on this h1 element? Now my background for the h1 element is pink. As you notice though, the margin did not go pink, only the element. So when I was telling you that the blue part is the element, that's what I'm referring to. The blue part, I guess the green part. The margin is not really. It's not, if you add in the background on the margin or on the element, it's not going to be added to the margin, as you could clearly see it right here. But we're going to get a little bit deeper into that in more CSS videos. Okay, so as you can see, you can select different things. You can change the background color. You can also change the regular color. Let's change the regular color to white. Something like that. So now we got this pink right here and it's white. And so you're starting to see how I'm selecting different elements. I first selected this div element, then I selected this h1 element. Right now, we're doing it in the Chrome DevTools. And like I told y'all, the Chrome DevTools just packages up everything for us that we were doing over here in Visual Studio Code and allows us to do it in real time and see our outcome right next to it all at once. So therefore, if it packages it up for us and takes it from Visual Studio Code, therefore we can go to Visual Studio Code and do the exact same thing, but we just need to learn the syntax for us to do that in Visual Studio Code. Here, the syntax was click on an element, go inside the element.style, and then give it some styling. But obviously, there's no click on an element in CSS. We need to address these elements by selectors. And so what do I mean by selectors? Well, we kind of already was talking about, let me see, 1 second. There we go. And I'm off the screen. Let me see. No. All right, my bad, y'all. I fixed myself real quick. I'm trying to get up on the screen. All right, cool. My green screen messed it up. All right, so with the CSS selectors, shoot. Gotta get that stretch out. This is gonna be a long one, y'all. I was thinking I'm just gonna knock it out in this one. So going back. So we want to be able to do this inside of our code. Therefore, we need something called selectors. So what the heck are selectors? And so now we about to let's just go back and take a look at let's just Google it. CSS selectors. Let's see if Google has a better definition for me. Okay, in CSS, selectors are patterns used to select the elements you want to style. Okay, use our CSS selector tester to demonstrate the different selectors. Okay, so here we go. In CSS, selectors are patterns used to select the elements you want to style. So selectors are going to, there's something about a pattern, okay, cool. But at the same time, what's the most important thing here is what I was telling y'all before. Selectors select elements you want to style. We're going to put selectors all over these different elements, and whenever we want to grab a specific element, we're going to use that selector name. And that selector going to be tied to that element. So let's say I create a selector, I tie it to an H1. Let's go back. Let's say I create a selector and somehow I tie that selector to this H1. Now, whenever I grab that selector in the CSS, it's always going to be kind of like pointing back to this H1. That makes sense? It's always going to be pointing back to that H1 when, there we go. So it will always point back to that H1 when I end up putting a selector on it. So what are the different type of selectors that we have out here? We have element selector. And so we're looking at this elements tab. When I say element, you should start thinking H1, P, A, table, all the different H1 or all the different HTML elements, tags. Those are what elements are. So you got your element tag, right? And so all of the H1P and whatnot. Then you have your element selectors. Then you have your, and so actually this right here is an element selector, kind of, but it's like inlining in a way. Or actually, this is more so an element selector. This is what an element selector will look like. This grabs the H1 element, and it starts the CSS with this curly bracket, and it closes the CSS with this curly bracket. And anything in between those curly brackets are the styling for that specific element. So for this H1, it says it has a display block. We'll get into that. Font size is 2M. I could change that. What if I say I want to change the font size to oh wait, this on H1, so I actually can't because that's built into the actual user agent style sheet. But we can change that later on. But so you got the font size, you got the margin block, margin, and all of that. So all of that stuff is going to be tied onto all H1s because this is selecting for all H1s. So if I add another H1 onto this screen, this H1 element selector for all H1s will have a display block, font size 2M, and all the rest of the jazz. Makes sense? Cool. Okay. So not only do we have element selectors, we have another thing called class-based selectors. And then another one called ID selectors. And I kind of just want to show you the syntax for the two. So that as I'm speaking, I want to show you the syntax for the two. So as I'm speaking and I'm showing it, you can follow along. So I'm bringing my iPad. And when I say we have our element selectors, so CSS, let's go with CSS, the three basic selectors of CSS. Three basic CSS selectors. Okay, and so the three basic CSS selectors is one, you got your element selectors. Man, this one's super thick. You got your element selectors. Let me bring that down to about like right there. Element. You got your element selectors. Then you got your class selectors. And then you got your ID selectors. Okay, so element selectors. What are the element selectors? The element selectors, once again, H1 through H6. You got your P tag. You got an A tag, a button, and so on. etc. Right? Cool. Element selectors. Whenever I wanna make this style, or I wanna make all H1s pink. I wanna make all H2s green or something like that. That's the element selector. But then you're gonna have a class selector. And so a class selector is a little bit different. So a class selector also pertains to the HTML. And if you kind of think about what we're doing right here, what we're looking at right here, these are HTML elements. And so we can have an H1 that looks like this, and then it closes off right here, H1. And I'll have some words. Let's say, what up, though? Right? That's what the H1 says. And so, like, I can grab this H1 element in the CSS. So let's imagine I have a CSS file down here. And what I would do is do very, very similar to what we did over here in the Chrome DevTools with this H1 element right here. I will create a styles.css file, and I will select that H1 element just like they did right here in the Chrome DevTools. Let me show you how I do that. So pretty much I would say H1, I'll go on my file and say H1 and give it a curly bracket and another curly bracket. And anything I wanted to happen to this H1 tag right here, I would say color, anything I want to happen goes in between the curly brackets. Goes in between these curly brackets right here. So let's extend these curly brackets out, make it look like that. Anything I want goes in between those curly brackets. So I'll say the color is red, and then separate it. Background color, and go yellow, something like that. So as you can see, I selected my H1 and I styled it up, and this is the way that I styled it up with this. That's how you style element using element selectors. Now, we about to try to style using class-based selectors. What is a class? Well, I was telling you before about attributes, and we saw that we can have a style attribute. And where do we see that we can have a style attribute? We saw it right here where it says element.style. This is basically saying h1.style. So let me go back. So this is basically saying this h1 tag has some attribute that says style equals like that, and we can set some style inline. We'll get to that soon, but we can set some style like that. But that's what an attribute is. An attribute goes inside the opening tag. So it's our way of configuring, if you will. It's our way of configuring this h1 tag. So we have an h1 tag, and we could say that there is another attribute called a class. In that class, we can set equal to a name. Let's say title. And we can still say the same thing in between, like, what up, though? Like that. And so we have the same, this is the same h1 element as above, but now, oh wait, it froze. Oh no, it didn't. Okay. This is the same h1 element as above, but now it simply has a class. And so when I was saying we have class-based selectors, we can give any element a class because all elements have class attributes. The P tag has a class attribute. The A tag has a class attribute. What do I mean by a class attribute? I mean that you can say P like this, and then you can say class, and it equals whatever class you want to name that class. I name this class title. You can name the class whatever. It's up to you as the programmer. The thing is, when you come back to the CSS file, so remember down here is our CSS file. When you come back to that CSS file and you want to actually now style this H1, because let's say, you see I got both of these H1s on the screen. So we got this H1 and we got that H1. But what if I wanted, what if I wanted all H1s to be red and with a yellow background, except this H1 right here? Well, I can create this basic styling for all H1s, and then for this specific one right here, I could just say dot title. And so what dot title does, this selects the class. This selects all elements that have the class dot title on it. And so in my CSS now, any element that has the class dot title is going to get a color white with a background. I'm going to just call it BG right now, with a BG color of black. So now this H1 tag is showing up with a background of black, but a color of white, while all the other H1 tags on the page will be showing up with a color red and a background yellow. So that's how we select using classes right here. So we use dot title, dot let's call open section. Even better, dot hero section, something like that. Different different names just for the classes. Okay, and so for IDs, so you can attach classes to multiple different elements. And if you think about it, what if we had a red class like this? We created a red class and we went to the HTML and we created this red, or we went to the CSS and we created this red class, and all this red class did was set the background color to red. So what we can do is also, not only can this H1 tag have the class title, but it also can have, if we space it, the class red. So what this basically does now is and let me not take the background color, and let me not call it red. I'm gonna call it big. So we don't confuse each other. We call it big, and let's call it font size equals 5 rem. Cool. So we have a class called big. So we got the H1 class, and we have the H1 element, and I attached the class title onto it and the class big onto it. What does this do? Well, it goes and it looks at the class title, and now the H1 has a color white and it has a color black, right? Cool. Or in the background color black. But then it goes and sees the big class as well, and it says, okay, and I also need to add a font size of 5 rem. So now this is a big title, a big white title with a black background is what happens. And so you can also remove that class off of there, and then it would just be a big title with the color, this, that, and the other. So we can add multiple classes onto elements. And the reason I brought that up is because we can only have one ID per element. And the ID looks like this. So you can call this open section. And so the ID is very, very specific to that element. And I usually don't put IDs on elements. Typically, I usually, if I'm gonna put an ID, it's either on a div or a section or something like that. When it comes to like H1 and P and whatnot, I'll just throw a class on there, because most of the time the classes is just gonna describe it, and then you can remove the class with the JavaScript. The ID becomes a little bit more. We're gonna tap into ID versus class in one of these videos. But real talk, this is the syntax for creating or for selecting HTML elements on a web page and then styling them up for how you want them to style. So we got real long in this one. It's a 40-minute video, but it's real worth it. Get through the video. If you got this far, congratulations. Like at this point, you got a slight understanding of CSS selectors, right? Like at this point, you can say, if you really slow the video down, you can say CSS selectors, 3 ways to select basic elements. Now we can get more into complicated selectors sooner or later, and we will. But right now, the basic ways of selecting elements is the element selector, the class selector, and then the ID selector. And I showed you here how you can go to the DevTools and you can play around, or you can open up the DevTools for the code that you're writing, and you can start clicking and seeing the different CSS that's already written right here. And then we can write our own CSS in real time inside the DevTools that we can then copy over to our own system. One more cool thing that I really wanted to show you is not only can you see that for your own system, but take this, or for your own website, but take a look at this website right here. We can go to the Elements tab and we could click on the header and look at this. We could see their CSS, and we could turn off their CSS. We could turn it on. We could turn it off, turn it on. We can even remove HTML from their webpage like that. So it's a lot that we can do from here, from the Chrome DevTools. Like the Chrome DevTools is going to speed up your development a lot. And that's why I come to this website and I say we're going to make our website literally look exactly the same as this website. And the reason we can do that is because all this HTML and the CSS is literally living right here for us to do that. And so I'm going to explain HTML, CSS through copying different websites, and you'll be able to understand how you can spin up your own websites real quick. And the more you start doing this and get familiar with the DevTools, the less you copy, and the more you just know off the top of your head. The first couple times though come with some copying, it come with some patience, and you just gotta be patient with yourself. You gotta go to all the different websites and really try to make those websites and get that knowledge in, because once you get it in the first time, doing it the second time not hard, doing it the third time, and I'm telling you, about the third one, you're gonna have, it's the same process each time, so you'll have that skill down real easy. But once again, you made it through it, congratulations. You know CSS selectors, you know how to use the Chrome DevTools now, like on a basic level, you know CSS selectors and Chrome DevTools. I'm renaming this video to Chrome DevTools and CSS selectors, because this was the intro to both of them, and you did really well for getting through them. So what comes next is styling. So now we know how to select these elements. Now we need to learn how to style them. We need these different properties, and there are over 100. There are hundreds of properties on CSS, and so obviously 80-20 rule, we're not about to use all of them. 80% of the time. We're only using 20% of them. And therefore, I'm gonna show you the ones that I use most of the time and how to efficiently do things with CSS. And I'm gonna introduce you to it and point you to ways and point you in the direction where you should be going if you want to go a little deeper, which you should. You should go deeper. But I'm gonna introduce you to these concepts through the different websites. So once again, congrats on making it through. Thank you for watching this video. Give a brother a subscription, a follow, something on Instagram, on the YouTube channel. Let me know how I'm doing. This was a long video, but honestly, man, tap in with these. It's got some good quality stuff. I'll be charging so much money per hour for learning. So here it is, like a free 45-minute hour for y'all, CSS and whatnot. So tap in with me. And like I said, I just appreciate y'all really watching these videos, and it's going to really take y'all to the next level. All right, peace.